denial. It's a question of identity. So speaking about identity, I need to say here, I need to confess a little bit. The truth is, I neglected this part, this identity work in psychology and therapy. I neglected this part for a long time, even though I know identity works. So let me explain this. It's a fact in therapy that working with identity is one of the strongest form of changes in all form of therapy. By the way, in behavioral therapy, in cognitive therapies, working with identity is very very powerful. When you work with identity, people have changes. But and I knew this, of course. I've been studying this for a long time, and I'm studying all brand of therapy, so I knew this. But the truth is, I didn't like working with identity, and the reason why is because I found this to be too abstract. So I couldn't find a biological basis. And by the way, clinical work have a lot of people that have field practice experience. So they try things and they don't understand the logic behind, but they see it works, and so they create methods around these kind of things. But that's nothing about neuroscience. And so that's one of my fight, because I'm passionate about neuroscience, and also I'm Muslim, and I don't want to use any fancy weird kind of methods. So one of my fights is to try to ground my therapy on neuroscience, on observable empirical facts, so I can make sure that what I provide for Muslims is something that is healthy, objectively correct, inshallah ta'ala. So that's one of the reasons I neglected identity work for such a long time, because I couldn't find a biological basis, and I don't like to use things that I can ground on objective science. And so I found it a bit abstract, and so I neglected it. And alhamdulillah, I could get many changes without working on identity in itself. But of course, it's a shame, because you have proof, a clinical proof that this is working. It was just too shady for me, too weird to use. So I just neglected it. And subhanAllah, like I told you, one of my fights is to reconcile neuroscience with clinical practice and therapy, which is very hard, by the way, because like most neuroscientists are very bad in clinical practice. They are, if you look for clinical advice among neuroscientists, a lot of time you get some very bad advice and very non-practical advice, and they just don't get it. And same thing for clinicians. A lot of time clinicians are very bad in neuroscience. They maybe know that you have a part of the brain that is known the limbic system that process some sort of emotion, and that the prefrontal cortex is about decision and analysis. Yeah, this kind of basic neuroscience stuff, they may know it, but the truth is, if you really try to test them on their neuroscience understanding, they're very bad and they don't get it. And so there's a fight here to reconcile neuroscience and clinical practice. And so for that, I'm a clinician in the first place, but I try to study a lot of neuroscience. And when I was studying this, I read that in a book by Leslie Greenberg. He was quoting Antonio Damasio. So for people that studied neuroscience, Antonio Damasio is like one of these big guys, especially on the neuroscience of affect and emotion. It's one of these big guys. And that's where everything clicked. I could find a neurobiological basis of identity work, and I changed my mind about identity work. And so I think his insight will help you understand why identity is important and why your partner is in denial in the first place. Let me explain you.